I wonder if you've been listening for news recently, listening for good news. Maybe you've been avidly watching into the government's daily briefings for updates on the coronavirus situation and seeing if we're making any progress. Maybe that's just sort of not quick enough for you, and you don't think that there's much change each day. So you're waiting and hanging on for that 3-week update to see if there'd be any change to the lockdown situation. Maybe if you're a Christian or if you're spiritual, you're coming to God, seeking him for good news. Perhaps you're starting to ask God some of the big questions in life. Maybe you're a bit desperate and anxious and you're crying out to him for help. Well, I've been reminded of a story from the Bible recently, which I think might give us a perspective on this situation. It comes from John chapter 11, and it's the story of some good friends of Jesus. Some friends of his who lived in the village of Bethany, just a couple of miles outside of Jerusalem. Sisters Mary and Martha, their brother Lazarus, and their dad Simon. Jesus received some terrible news that Lazarus was really ill. In fact, he was so sick that he was about to die. But we're told that in the story that Jesus loved Mary and Martha very much, which would suggest to us that surely in the situation he would have rushed as quickly as possible to go and help them. But we're told that on receiving the news, Jesus waited where he was for 2 more days. Why would he do this? Well, it can't be because he didn't care, because we're told that he loved them very much. It can't be because he was prevented from getting to them, because we're told that it was a deliberate decision for him to wait. So Jesus must have had a particular purpose for waiting and delaying coming to them. Jesus has a purpose for everything, right? In fact, on receiving the news about Lazarus' sickness, Jesus said that Lazarus' illness would not end in death. But Jesus said that he would be glorified through this situation. Well, once Jesus arrived in Bethany, we see that his interaction with Martha and Mary showed up some gaps in both their knowledge and their faith in him. Martha, when she saw Jesus, said, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know even now God will give you whatever you ask." So she obviously believed in Jesus' healing power. Well, to some extent anyway, as we'll see in a moment. Jesus told her that her brother would rise again, but she thought he was talking about the final resurrection on the last day, sometime in the future. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." "Do you believe this?" he said. Well, she said that she believed he was the Messiah, the Son of God. Mary then comes out. She comes out to Jesus and she falls at his feet. "Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died." Was there a feeling of resentment in her voice? The thought perhaps that Jesus hadn't cared enough about them? Well, Jesus asked to see the place where Lazarus had been laid. And we're told that when he saw the tomb, Jesus wept. You see, death is not good. And death was never part of God's good original creation. Jesus instructed the people to take the stone away from the entrance to the tomb. 4 days would have been enough time for the body to have started smelling and rotting. What was Jesus thinking? But as he stood there, Jesus prayed and he called Lazarus out of the tomb. Something incredible happened then. The dead man walked out of that tomb, still with the linen cloth wrapped around his body and his face. Jesus had reversed death and decay and had brought life. Now, amongst all the amazing things from that story, what are some important things that perhaps we need to learn about Martha and Mary? Well, here's one. Mary and Martha's agenda was different to Jesus's. And secondly, Mary and Martha had gaps in their understanding and faith in Jesus, those gaps that needed to be challenged, or their faith needed to be stretched and to grow. Jesus wanted to do that with them. So what does that mean for us in this situation at this time of our lives? Well, perhaps our prayers at the moment are focused mainly on one thing. God, please halt this virus, take it away so that things can be back as they were. We may believe that that Christ can really do this. That's why we're praying to him for that. But we may assume that our agenda is also top of God's agenda, to change the circumstances as quickly as possible and to put things right. But perhaps we need to broaden our prayers and our focus at this time. Not simply for the Lord to change the circumstances around us, but maybe for the Lord to change some important things within us. You see, Mary and Martha just wanted to speed through the process as quick as possible so it was dealt with. And perhaps we do. We want things to happen quickly so that God sorts the situation out and normal life can be resumed again. But for us, as for them, he may be slowing things down a little so he can do some important work within our hearts to grow us and to draw us deeper into him. Maybe Jesus wants us to spend time getting to know him better, that he might reveal more of himself to us, himself as he really is, as we actually spend the time and create space to really seek him. Maybe he wants to rough out some edges in our thinking and to draw us closer and deeper, that we might read and listen, that we might talk and pray, that we might learn and grow, that we might become more at one with him, and that we might become more mature in him. So that once we come out of this the other side, things won't go back exactly the way they were before. Why? Because we'll be different. We will be changed. We will have grown in our faith. We'll be more secure and confident in Christ and his ways. We'll become more mature disciples of Jesus. And if that's true, then our church won't simply go back to the way things were before. Why? Because us together as a family of believers will have grown more as lifelong disciples of Jesus Christ. And it will make a huge difference to the way our community works and lives together. So yes, Jesus could have rushed to Lazarus and cured him, but he waited out of love, partly to do a work, an important work in the hearts of Mary and Martha, but also so that his glory might have been manifested in an even greater way by raising Lazarus from the dead. Look, Jesus is with us now. Make no mistake, he hasn't left us. But his delay in rushing to halt and to stop this coronavirus pandemic has a purpose. We may not understand all of the reasons or all of the purposes, but he may reveal some of them to us. Perhaps he wants to do a work in our hearts. Look, it's not wrong to pray for God to act, to heal, to restore, and to bring change into people's lives. But please don't rush yourselves through this situation that you miss the opportunity to know Christ better. Make the most of it. Grow in him. And maybe his glory will be manifested in an even greater way by what he will do in time. He brings life out of death. I am the resurrection and the life, Jesus said. The one who believes in me will live even though they may die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?